Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, downtown Northport, West Alabama. Really, everybody who's watching us today on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You guys are listening to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. Welcome into the Wednesday edition of the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. I appreciate everybody tuning us in. We're going to have a fun Wednesday today. Before we get into the program today, I want to encourage you guys to follow us at BamaCentral.com for all of our Alabama coverage. We are the Sports Illustrated home for your Alabama Crimson Tide. Want to encourage you guys to listen to our other Bama Central Broadcasting Network podcast. We have our friends, All Things Bama and Blue Collar Unplugged. The three of us together make the Bama Central Broadcasting Network happen. We're so thankful for Dr. Chris Walsh putting us on each and every day. Make sure you follow Chris Walsh at Writing Walsh on the Twitter machine. He keeps us going right here on Bama Central. So we're going to have a fun Wednesday. Hopefully you guys are having a great Wednesday. Happy hump day, everybody out there. What are we going to do on the program today? Of course, you can follow us and jump in on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Joe Gaither6. You can find me on all the social medias at Joe Gaither6. Send me your comments, your questions, queries, and complaints. Any kind of tidbits you want to jump in. Or if you just want to connect with me on the social media machine, you're welcome to do that at Joe Gaither6 on all the social media platforms. Okay, what we're going to do today, first, we're going to thank Will Miller for joining us yesterday. Follow him at RealWB Miller. We're going to thank him for joining us yesterday. If you missed that program, you can find it on all the outlets I just mentioned. We appreciate Will Miller joining us, talking about strong position groups for Alabama, talking about UFC, talking about Alabama soccer, talking all things quarterbacks related with Will Miller. So I appreciate him joining me yesterday on the program. We're going to talk offensive line today. Here's the outline for the day, and we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about the Alabama offensive line. We're going to talk about what we've heard from practice, what we've heard from scrimmages, and what we've heard so far. Nick Saban talked yesterday. I have two Nick Saban clips that I want to play for you guys and go on and on and on about. We want to talk about just a little bit of injury news in the NFL. Two Alabama players coming up with a little injuries coming today, yesterday, in the last 24, 48 hours. So we'll talk about that as well. And then we'll round out and wrap up the program with the five best wide receivers, the five best Alabama wide receivers in the NFL in 2023. Who's going to have the best seasons in 2023? So thank y'all so much for joining us on the program today, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon. I love each and every one of you, and I appreciate you so much. Let's get right into it with the Alabama offensive line. Okay, so what have we heard? What do we know? We know so far that Alabama wants to get back to a mauling style. We want to get back to a physical offensive line, and we want to really establish the running game and get the play action passing game going, protecting the quarterbacks. What have we heard? We've heard that the offensive line is coming along and is more physical, but you're having problems protecting your quarterbacks in these practices, in these scrimmages. And so you ask yourself, is it the Alabama defense being so strong? Hopefully so. Hopefully the Alabama defense carries these strong performances over into games for, 18 days away? No, 17. We're 17 days away. We're Paul Tyson days away from Alabama kicking off against MTSU. So your weakness right now is along the left side. As I saw on Alabama Open practice, 2 weeks ago, and we've heard now kind of updates from the scrimmage from Saturday. From left to right, it sounds like your offensive line right now is Caden Proctor, is Terrence Ferguson, is Seth McLaughlin, Tyler Booker, and then J.C. Latham. And look, you think about these guys and you think about what they have done. Excuse me. Excuse me, got a little caught in the back of my throat. I'm sorry. You think about what these guys have done so far, how they're highly rated, and you have experience with J.C. Latham, Tyler Booker, and with Seth McLaughlin. You have deep experience along the Alabama offensive line in a couple of places. Where you don't have experience is what you're seeing on the left side with Caden Proctor and Terrence Ferguson. What have you heard out of practice and out of camp is that these guys are very, very physical, but you're having a little bit of mental errors and you're having a little bit of trouble, picking up the blitz packages, and you're having a little bit of trouble just getting up to speed along the left side. Coach Saban has been very vocal in fall camp so far, saying that he feels that we have 6 or 7 starting offensive linemen. Well, you guys know we only play 5 at a time unless we're doing some special package. We have 6 or 7 offensive linemen. We've hit the first 5. The next couple are likely Elijah Pritchett and Darian Dalcourt. You think about what you've got, what you want to do this year, you don't want to have any problems along the left side. Especially, no matter who you're playing, that's going to be your quarterback's blind side. Your next couple linemen who seem to be getting a lot of repetitions are Wilkin-Formby, Olasa Lennon, and James Brockemeyer. I don't really see those 3 players playing playing much of a factor into this year's offensive line. So let's talk about what we can do for the left side, how we can mitigate or really shore up the left side of the offensive line. What would you do if you were Eric Wolford, Tommy Rees, and Nick Saban? Here's the thing. I think that you're set already at the offensive line. I do. I think you're set with the first 5 that you've already built with Caden Proctor, Terrence Ferguson, Seth McLaughlin, Tyler Booker, and J.C. Latham from left to right. Now, the big question and the big suggestion that you've been hearing along message boards and in fan rooms and, just whispers and Twitter, wherever you're getting your news, is that we should move J.C. Latham from the right side to the left side to play left tackle. We all know it's the most valuable position along the offensive line. And J.C. Latham, when he gets to the NFL, will very, very likely be flipped to left tackle pretty quickly. I think that he's going to be unless it's a straight up, what's the Jedrick Wills situation where Jedrick Wills goes to the Browns and stays on the right side. I really feel strongly that J.C. Latham's going to be a very strong left tackle in the NFL. We heard from him yesterday. He talked about playing at 360 pounds and really playing very strong and growing. He wanted to get to that 360 pounds because of the future competition that he'd be facing. I see J.C. Latham as a franchise tackle as a franchise left tackle in the NFL. He's going to probably be a top 10, top 15 pick in next spring's NFL draft. So will Nick Saban and will Eric Wolford go ahead and say, you know what, this is going to be your future position in the NFL. Go ahead and throw him over there. We need some help on the left side. I say no, they won't. I think that he's comfortable already at the right side. You think about what you're doing with Tyler Booker and J.C. Latham, the 2 IMG buddies. They both played down at IMG a couple of years together. I don't see J.C. Latham moving at all. I see Alabama rolling out their first offensive line against MTSU in 17 days with the line that I just laid out for you. Proctor, Ferguson, McLaughlin, Booker, then Latham, all from left to right. And the reason for that is because you've already developed chemistry between Tyler Booker and J.C. Latham. I think that you like what you've seen out of Terrence Ferguson from a physicality standpoint. And really, Caden Proctor, let's project ahead. Let's project down the line. Caden Proctor in 3 years will likely be another top 15, top 10 pick at left tackle. I know left tackle is your biggest, most important position along the line. What do I have him at? What do I have my man at? Caden Proctor, 6 foot. Yeah. 6 foot. He's 6'7", 350 pounds already. So my man's already got the physical frame to play it. It's just gonna be a matter of reps. getting reps, seeing live action. You're playing against probably one of the best one of the best defensive fronts in college football in practice each and every day in Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell. You're playing against those two guys. You're playing against Tim Smith. You're playing against Justin Aboigbe. You're getting pressure up the middle. You're getting pressure off the edge from Deontay Lawson, from Justin Jefferson. Like Alabama is going to put pressure on a lot of teams this year. I think the defense, look, we've talked ad nauseum about how the defense will return to its prior to its prior standard of being a great Alabama defense. And we talked with Will Miller yesterday about it returning to 2011, 2016, 2009 in those categories. And I think that this defense will. So when I hear yesterday's practice and when I see Alabama Open Fan Day and I hear notes from the scrimmage on Saturday that, oh my gosh, the defense is really getting after the quarterback. Do you put it on the defense for being very strong, or do you put it on the offense for being very weak, the offensive line for being weak? I think, honestly, as I look and stand up, and stack up the two groups against each other, it's got to be that the defense is very, very strong. I don't think the offensive line is weak. Now, do I think that it has room for improvement? Absolutely, 100%. The offensive line will have room for improvement until, you get to that 2020 offensive line where Mac Jones didn't wash his jersey at all for an entire season, and Najee Harris had great holes to go through. You get back to, the 2012 offensive line. You get back to those levels, then you're there. For right now, you're not there. You need these guys, and you see the tools with these guys. You need these guys to step up, man up, and really, it's all about reps. Coach Saban talked about it on Saturday about cross-training offensive linemen. He mentioned it when he was talking about cross-training defensive backs. It's very important to cross-train. Okay, you can play left guard, you can play right guard. You can play left tackle, you can play right tackle. We got a couple guys who can play center. I know Darren Dalcourt is sitting right there ready to play center. Terrence Ferguson's got himself some reps at center as well. James Brockermeyer sitting right there probably as your fourth center, ready to step in. Versatility along the offensive line is a huge asset. It's a huge asset. But as you go into the season and you get ready to face top-tier competition in the SEC, you're seeing Texas come to town week number 2, and you would know their defensive line is going to be pretty nasty. You see them coming into town. You want to find your first 5 offensive linemen as quickly as possible. And you want to find the chemistry, 5 fingers, 1 fist. We punch along, hammer the defense over and over and over again. I think it's very, very important to set that chemistry. And I think Coach Saban, Eric Wolford, Tommy Rees has been doing that so far through these early stages of camp. Now, do you like hearing struggles along the left side? No. You don't like hearing struggles anywhere, particularly along the left side. But you don't want, look, if you flip JC to the left side, what do? You flip JC to the left side, then you say, oh, do I move Tyler Booker also because he and JC Latham have a little bit of a osmosis chemistry together where they're feeling each other. They know what they want to do. No, you don't jack up the entire offensive line just because I feel like one guy is going through growing pains, going through normal freshman growing pains. What do? You maybe instead you put your CJ Duprees along the left side, you put your Mari Nyblacks, you put your Miles Kitselman, your Robbie Oots along the left side as well. What do? You put your 6th offensive lineman if you want to overload, you put them to the left side, you give Caden Proctor a little bit of help on that side, and you let Caden Proctor play against MTSU, against Texas, against USF. And figure it out. Figure it the bleep out, brother. He's going to. Obviously, he was the top tackle in the 2023 class. Yeah, 2023 class. He was the top tackle. Came down to Iowa and Alabama for his choices. And look, you just throw him out there because by the time the season is week 4, week 5, when you're playing Ole Miss, September 23rd, I believe that is. When you're playing Ole Miss, he's gonna have to be ready, and you want that first 5 to be ready, locked in and loaded. I say, much like the Jalen Milroe, you got to throw him out there and let him work through the early parts of the season. And I think you do the same thing for Caden Proctor. I like what you have along the offensive line. You stack up the line, and you look at how big they're going to be. Let me pull up my man rolltide.com and go through these. Obviously, we just hit Caden Proctor, 6'7", 250 pounds. What's Ferguson rocking at? Ferguson, 6'4", 320, according to rolltide.com. We already hit on JC Latham. JC Latham is 6'6", 360 pounds. Seth McLaughlin, a little bit undersized, 6'4", 300 pounds. But goodness gracious, your offensive line is looking like one of the biggest offensive line that Alabama has rolled out there in quite some time. Tyler Booker, 6'5", 340 pounds. Like, this is your five. This is your five, and no matter no matter if you're having struggles in camp right now, no matter if you're having struggles in camp right now with Caden Proctor on the left side of the line, like at what point do you not give credit to the defense? At what point do you not just say, you know what, the Alabama defense is looking really, really good? That's kind of the trouble that you get into with these fall camps, with all these reports coming out of practice. You see the same thing in the NFL. Oh, so and so threw an interception to the defense. Well, why? Oh, well, what does that mean? Maybe the defense is playing well. You see that maybe the defense is playing really, really well, and would you rather have the offense ripping the defense apart? Would that make you feel good? Oh, man, the offense is throwing touchdowns on every single play. The offense is scoring, is getting first downs every single play. No, that would make you feel very concerned about the state of this Alabama defense going into the first game. So as I hear reports and hear whispers about the left side of the offensive line struggling through, the first little bits of camp, look, yesterday was the 11th practice. Yesterday was the 11th practice. Let me pull up our schedule. We're practicing at 7:30 tonight. Yeah, tonight is Wednesday. Yeah. Wednesday, August 16th. So you've got what? Wednesday, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You've got about 10 more practices to go until you're playing. Oh, perfect. Until you're playing MTSU. So you still have a lot of time. Look at this. Oh, my man, Chris Gaither, my cousin. What's Bama looking like for the 2023 season, stacked against the Vols 2023 new recruits? Look, my man Chris, I think Tennessee's going to be very good. I think Tennessee. Yeah, I got your comment. Yeah, I think Tennessee is actually going to be pretty good. The struggle with Tennessee is they have to be perfect. They're going to have to be perfect. You look at their schedule stacked up against Georgia's schedule. Could you say that Tennessee is going to beat Georgia or beat Alabama? Yes, you can. I think that's very, very viable, especially after what you saw last year. Tennessee hosts Georgia this year, comes to Tuscaloosa. I am maybe biased expecting Alabama to get revenge. The problem for Tennessee is you're going to have to be perfect. Let me see. Tennessee schedule. Let's see, Tennessee football schedule. I know you're a big Vols fan, my man, Chris Gaither. Thank you so much for watching me on the Facebook machine. Yeah, you're going to have to play perfect because of Georgia's schedule. And your issue is you've got A&M coming to town. That's going to be a challenging game. You're going to Alabama, obviously a challenging game. You're bringing Georgia into Neyland Stadium, a challenging game. You're going to Florida, a place where you haven't always done very, very well. I like Josh Heupel. I do. I think Josh Heupel is very, very talented as a coach. I don't think his scheme is overly complicated, but I think he runs it very, very efficiently, and so that makes it very challenging to run any defense. And I think Coach Saban really struggled last year with adjusting to Josh Heupel's speed, adjusting to Josh Heupel's basically scheme against his pattern matching defense. You saw Georgia mix in a little bit of cover 2 and a cover 3 to slow down that scheme, and obviously they did. The problem with Tennessee's schedule is if they want to get to where they want to get to, SEC Eastern champions, that's the first place. Get to Atlanta. They're going to have to basically play perfect. Because if they lose one game, if they lose at Alabama, let's just say I think that's your most likely loss. Even if you beat Georgia, you're now tied with one loss. Okay, so you got to go down and beat Florida. You got to beat A&M as well. Georgia's schedule is easy. Georgia's schedule is not very respectable, honestly. And yes, they are the reigning champions, 2-time national champions. And of course, you give them their due because they're recruiting at such a high level. They are, and they're going to be very, very good. But their competition is not that strong. So their hardest game really is going to be going up to Knoxville. Kirby's going to have them ready. Kirby's going to get them fired up. If Tennessee loses that game, then really they're behind the 8 ball as far as getting to the SEC championship. Will Tennessee's season be made just by beating Alabama one more time and going to an Orange Bowl if they want to go to a New Year's Six Bowl? Maybe. Tennessee is kind of in a really challenging position due to Georgia's easy schedule. I think Tennessee's going to look. They were ranked AP poll 10, 11, 9, right in that range. I think that's about right. They're going to have a strong year. They're going to be a good team, and I think the Vols are going to be something to contend with. Joe Milton, I like him. Joe Milton, I put him at my number 2 quarterback going into the SEC season. Early July, if you want to go back and look at that episode. And then I really, really, really love Nico. I really, really love Nico Iamaleava as their backup quarterback. Sorry, I'm getting little text messages from important people, so got to check those as well. But Chris, thank you so much for looking at the program today and watching it. Let's transition because I've kind of wrapped up my position on the Alabama offensive line. I think that you're set with the first 5. I think your first 5 is pretty much set along the offensive line. And even though you're having and you're hearing struggles along the left side, right now in camp, I think it bodes very well for Alabama's defense, and you just got to throw out Caden Proctor, let him deal with the growing pains, that are being a freshman in the SEC. You go back to DJ Fluker, you go back to Quanjos, you go back to, you've had a number of freshman starters along the Alabama offensive line. Evan Neal as well. Look, you bring these guys in, you got to throw them out there. You recruited them for a reason. I think that you're already set along the offensive line with the first 5 of Caden Proctor, Terrence Ferguson, Seth McLaughlin, Tyler Booker, and J.C. Latham. All right, let's go to the NFL real quick. Let's go to Nick Saban. And then we'll do back-to-back topics on the NFL. Back-to-back topics on the NFL after, of course, hearing from the GOAT, Nick Saban. Nick Saban yesterday meeting with the media in the Naylor Stone media room, and I've got 2 clips that I want to play for you guys watching and listening to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon. Here we go. This is Nick Saban. His quote on quarterbacks yesterday.
Regarding the quarterbacks, do coaches kind of provide some off-the-field evaluation on if the quarterbacks are kind of living up to the leadership habits and communication you guys want from a starter in that role?
What I tell the quarterbacks is it's not up to the coaches. You're looking over your shoulder to see if the coach is going to do this or that. How about you forcing me to play? Forcing me to play you. Force us to play you. When you get your reps and you get a chance to play, you play so good, we don't have any choice but to play you rather than worrying about all this other stuff. So that's the only way I can answer your question.
Coach Saban yesterday, force us to play you. And what does that mean to me as I'm sitting in the media room listening? What it means to me is that you don't have, Coach Saban about a week ago talked about grabbing the bull by the horns, winning the team. And it seems like, at least from that comment, it seems like you're still looking for one of those quarterbacks to grab the bull by the horns to win the team. Don't look at Tommy Rees. Did I make the right read? Did you see that pass? Was it a good pass? Are you happy with that pass? Don't look over your shoulder. Did I make the right check along the offensive line? Don't look at Eric Wolford saying, hey, did I get the guys in the right position? It seems like, look, your physical tools with Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson are there. They're definitely there. I'm very confident in that. The issue, it seems like, is the mental game along the quarterback or with the quarterbacks. And is the coaching staff doing enough? Is the coaching staff doing enough to put the guys or to push the guys along, to get them mentally ready to lead the team? Are they, because once MTSU's there, look, MTSU, you're gonna wax them. But Texas is coming to town. When Texas, the bullets are flying, you can't look to the sidelines before, the play clock is ticking, 35, 34, 33. The play clock is ticking. Coach Saban, I think at this point is really like I think physically he knows what the guys can do. At this point, he's seen them for, spring practice for Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe. He's seen them in the summer, just a little bit here and there, obviously. He's seen them through 11 practices, one scrimmage. We know what you can do physically. We know what your skill sets are. Are you going to take the next step mentally? Are you going to take the next step mentally and from a leadership perspective to grab the bull by the horns and take this team? I think that's what your next step is along the quarterback position. Now, we talked about quarterbacks heavily yesterday with my man Will Miller. Appreciate Will joining me. You can listen to that on any of the outlets we've already mentioned. Follow Will Miller at Real WB Miller. Look, this Saturday is going to be your next scrimmage, and I'm really thinking, look, from what I've heard, the quarterback race is still pretty tight. But I've heard that Jalen Milroe is taking a little steps forward. But I caution you, don't take that to the bank as far as he's won the job. No, he hasn't won the job. If this is a track meet or if you're watching, the race around the track, I think these guys are on the back straightaway. I don't think these guys are coming around the last turn. No. I think Jalen Milroe has a little bit of a lead, but we're only on the back straightaway. We're at the 200-meter mark or so. We've gone, we're maybe only at the 150-meter mark. There's 400 meters on a track, so you're right around the second curve. I think Jalen Milroe has taken a couple of steps forward as far as leading the quarterback competition, but we're nowhere near home. We're nowhere near coming around the last curve and getting to the finish line for the quarterbacks. I think Jalen Milroe does have a slight lead right now, but hear me say it is nowhere close to being done. And Coach Saban has reiterated that, saying even when I name a starter, it's not going to end the quarterback competition. So that's kind of where you're at on the quarterbacks. I think Jalen Milroe is taking steps forward. I think I heard that he had a good practice yesterday, and really it's all going to be culminating and going forward to to Saturday's scrimmage. Cannot wait to hear from Coach Saban again on Saturday after the scrimmage. We'll be there in the Bryant-Denny Stadium media room about 3:15. The other theme for Nick Saban's press conference yesterday was on leadership. And Coach was not necessarily spicy, but he was very clear on kind of what he wants to see. We've got good leaders on the team already. We need more players to be self-motivated.
I'm going to try to steal your analogy about quarterbacks being like a cake in the oven with this question and try to apply it to leadership. When you look at leadership on the whole, if you looked at it like a cake in the oven, how close to being fully baked do you see that being?
There's a couple things about leadership. Everybody talks about leadership all the time, but I think it's also important that how many guys on the team need to be led. So if you got a bunch of guys that are mature and going about things the right way, they're all setting a good example. They're all buying in. They're all doing the things that they need to do. So they don't really necessarily have to have somebody impact them every day to do the right things. And the more guys that we have that fit in that category, that's more important than the guys that are the leaders on the team. Because I think that's what you're trying to get. Now, there are some guys that have an impact on other players. And I think that, there's a couple guys in the offensive line that has provided some really good leadership. I think there's some guys on defense that have some maturity that's provided some leadership. We actually need it at every position because if you have guys at every position that are setting a good example every day by what they do, it gives young players somebody to emulate. And I think that's important. But I'll go back to my original point. The fewer guys that we have that need somebody to emulate, the better off we're going to be.
Coach Saban right there talking about leadership. And what do you hear from Coach? I mean, compare it to the last couple of years. Compare it to the last couple of years where you've heard Coach Saban not necessarily coddle the team, but Coach Saban in the last couple of years has been, your expectations for the team is a little unfair, or your expectations are out of whack, or these guys are working hard, and ABC and XYZ. This year's theme, or this year's Coach Saban's attitude he's been kind of rough on the team. He's been kind of rough on the team. And what does that tell me? I think Coach Saban's very confident in what this team is. And I think Coach Saban's very, very excited about the self-motivated factor for this team. And I think Coach Saban is kind of feeling like this team is a team that can be pushed, that can take some tough love, that can take some hard coaching. And you're hearing that in most of the media sessions so far. Now, Coach has been, obviously, I love Coach Saban and I enjoy being a part of those media sessions. I don't care if he rips my ass. I don't really care at all. That's fine. That makes me laugh. But Coach has been a little bit, I mean, a mixture of sense of humor, and also a mixture of, oh my gosh, I need to whip this team's butt. This team needs to keep getting its butt whipped. He walked in yesterday and essentially said, we got to figure out what percentage of the team is playing winning football and how to raise that percentage to closer to 100%. And then you heard it right there, the next clip, the clip I just played on leadership. How many guys need to be led? Look, I was an average Andy athlete, an absolutely average Andy athlete. Never had any college opportunities, and that's okay. We're not crying about that. But I needed to be led until I was about a senior. And when I was a senior, I realized, oh my gosh, this is my last chance. I'm going to do all the little things that I need to do to be a winner and get on the field. And I got on the field a little bit, average Andy athlete, whatever. But had I been self-motivated, had I been adopting that attitude as an 8th grader, freshman, sophomore, junior, going into my attitude to play football, maybe. I mean, you can only deal with whatever athleticism God graced us with. And thank you, Lord, for the athleticism that you did grace me with. I appreciate it. But I might have had a bigger contribution to my high school team. I might have, had just a little bit, 10% more, whatever the case may be. And so for these guys who are, I'm a freshman, I just walked in, I just want to win, I'm watching player X and player Y, and they're gonna lead the team this year. It's their time, it's not my time. No. Coach Saban is emphasizing the need for the entire team to raise their level of attention to detail. Coach Saban's talked twice now in media availability about drinking and smoking. And whatever you do in your spare time, okay, that's between you and yourself and your family and all that stuff. But you guys know that for athletes, that's just not really something that they need to be doing. That's not something that they need to be participating in if they want to operate and play at the highest level. So the small things, the off-the-field things, you got to really pay attention to, and Coach Saban emphasizing that yesterday. I think that Coach, he highlights your leaders along the offensive line. We've talked about the offensive line at the very beginning of the program. I think J.C. Latham and Seth McLaughlin are vocal leaders and also leading by example. I think you flip to the other side on the defensive line. I think the defensive side, Deontay Lawson, Dallas Turner. I think both those guys are vocal leaders. I think you have great leaders along the team. But you think back to last year, oh my gosh, you had Jordan Battle, Henry To'oTo'o, you had Will Anderson, Bryce Young, and we ended up with the 2-loss season. Now, oh my gosh, every college football team in America, save for Ohio State and Georgia, would have traded with us last year, of course. But that's not the Alabama standard. You had great leaders last year, great individual leaders last year, leading by example, and I'm sure that they spoke up at times. I'm sure they spoke up and tried to lead as best they can vocally. Coach knows, and Coach is emphasizing the need to get past past the Seth McLaughlins, past the J.C. Lathams, past the Justin Aboigbees, those types, past the Malachi Moores and the Kool-Aid McKinstries. Of course, you want those guys to lead at a high level, but what you've absolutely got to have is leadership at every position and guys buying into the little things down the depth chart. Wilkin Formby, let's just throw him out there. I'm sure he's a great player. You see him on the Taco Casa commercials. He's going to be a freshman, and you like what you've heard from him so far. But Wilkin is what? An injury away from getting thrown out there. I think that he's one of your next tackles waiting to get some playing time. And so Wilkin as a freshman, and look, I haven't heard anything negative, so I'm just using him as an example. But Wilkin as a freshman needs to be doing the things that J.C. Latham's doing, eating right, going to bed on time, waking up on time, getting to training table, doing the little things off the field, and then obviously watching film, taking the right steps on the field, taking every rep seriously. everybody down the depth chart has to be raising their game for Alabama to return to the standard, that really Nick Saban has set. Think back to 2009. 2009, look, Coach Saban gets here in 07. He really cleans out the roster, honestly. He cleans out the roster. The leftovers, the Mike Shula holdovers, kind of are in culture shock. You've heard a lot of them talk about, oh my gosh, Coach Saban came and flipped the script. He brings in the 08 recruiting class that's very, very nasty, very, very good. Then he brings in the 09 recruiting class. The 08 team goes 12-2, and it's really oh my gosh, we actually can be good. We can be solid. This dream that Coach Saban is selling us is not really that far-fetched. So what does the 08 team into 09 do? The entire team buys in. From top to bottom. From top to bottom, you've got the Shula holdovers who want to finally be winners and want to say, we left our mark on the Crimson Tide. You've got now not one but two strong recruiting classes come in. You see sophomore Julio Jones, sophomore Mark Ingram, this, that, and the other. Obviously, you have turnover from 07 and 08, but the entire team buys in and does the little things. And what ends up happening? Undefeated season, winning in the Rose Bowl, national championship, the standard is reset. So that's what you got to have. You've got to have it down the entire depth chart, not just your starters. I like what you have in a lot of the starters, but you have to be ready. Golly, how many times are we going to sit here and complain about the 2021 national championship game? If Alabama hadn't lost John Mechie and Jamison Williams, we'd have been national champion. Sure, fair. But the fact of the matter is you did lose. We did lose John Mechie in that SEC championship game. We did lose Jamison Williams in that national title game. Could Alabama have ripped up out Georgia again? Maybe. We don't know. What ended up happening? You lost two of your best players, and you had nothing behind them. Nothing. And so people say, oh, why were we not developing receivers behind them? Blah, 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 blah. Jai Hall and all these other. You have to be ready and be operating like you're the starter, operating like you were going to play every snap, and operating like you're going to be a high-level contributor to the football team. If you'd had that attitude in 2021 when Jamison Williams and Ajayi Hall goes down, when Jamison Williams and John Mechie goes down, you might have had a receiver or three ready to go, ready to fill in those shoes and ready to step up, but you didn't. And Georgia wins and starts their dynasty, and here we are. So it's time for Alabama to get the buy-in down the depth chart. Coach Saban talking about the need for players to not need to be led by other players, but to be self-motivated, and to be doing the right things, little things on and off the field. All right, let's flip it to the NFL. We're at 37 minutes in. Well, I appreciate everybody jumping in and watching us today, leaving a comment on the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube side of things at Joe Gaither 6, wherever you get your social medias. You can find me right there. We appreciate you listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We are proud part of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. We are going to have a practice tonight at 7:30 over at the Malmore Center. So the guys are going to have a nice little evening practice. Stay away from the heat again tonight. They've been kind of alternating between midday and evening practice. I appreciate Coach Saban for doing that. Let's flip to the NFL. Two topics real quick. One real quick one, and then a little elongated topic with wide receivers. We got to hit two injuries that have happened in the last really this morning. One has kind of been lingering. If you don't know, our man Marlon Humphrey underwent foot surgery. The Baltimore Ravens cornerback underwent foot surgery today. Coach Jim Harbaugh talking about it being a lingering issue for Marlon and wanting to go ahead and get it taken care of. I do wonder why we didn't get it taken care of a week or 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago. But, they know more than I do. I'm sure that Marlon probably thought he might be able to play through it and work through it and be fine. But the Ravens and Marlon Humphrey coming together and saying, no, let's get this taken care of now. He looks like he might still be ready for the early part of the season. Not going to miss a ton of time, but we wish Marlon Humphrey great success in recovery post-foot surgery. Secondly, on the injury front, Jamison Williams comes up with a hamstring today. And dear God, Jamison Williams, what bad luck has he had really since the ACL that we just referenced in the championship game in 21. Obviously missing time last year as a rookie, still recovering from the ACL injury. And then once he got into the action, didn't really get a whole lot of attention, a whole lot of targets. Then, of course, it gets caught up in the gambling. He's suspended for 6 games anyways this year, but coming up with a hamstring injury at today's practice. We hope that is a quick recovery. He can bounce back. Yes, even though he plays for the Lions and we on the program are Bears fans, we hope for Jameson Williams to have a successful season when he gets off of suspension. We hope that hamstring pull or hamstring strain is not going to hinder him too long. All right, let's flip it to perfect. Let's flip it to wide receivers in the NFL, and we wrap up the program up. I don't want to play that. We wrap up the program. Look, it's fantasy football season, and look, I know that maybe you do play fantasy football, maybe you don't. We're going to keep this very, very Alabama-centric, and we're going to preview my favorite 5 Alabama wide receivers going into the 2023 season. In the NFL, that is. And if you're drafting fantasy football this year, these are the 5 Alabama wide receivers that I would be going after, and in this order. So I got 5 receivers, and you guys all know them. You guys all love them. Please feel free to disagree or agree with me in the comments section. Who is your favorite, or what Alabama alum will be the most productive this coming season in the NFL? Let's go 5 to 1, and let's start with number 5. I'm going to pick Jerry Jeudy as my number 5 Alabama alum in the NFL. Jerry Jeudy last year, coming off his 3rd season in the NFL, his best year in the NFL, coming up with 100 targets, 67 receptions, 972 yards, and 6 touchdowns. You get year number 2 with Russell Wilson. Do I think the Broncos are going to be a lot better? No, but I think they're going to be a little better, and I think your chemistry between Jerry Jeudy and Russell Wilson will be much higher. I believe they had an injury. Yeah, I believe they had a preseason camp injury. They had Tim Patrick, unfortunately, got himself hurt a week ago. So Jerry Jeudy stays near the top of the wide receiver depth chart. Jerry Jeudy coming in at number 5 for me. Hopefully he will cross or break that 1,000-yard mark for the first time this year. Number 4 is an oldie but a goodie. Number 4, Mr. Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, playing for his first year with the Cleveland Browns last year, ended up with over 100 targets, 132 targets, 78 receptions, 1,160 yards, 9 touchdowns. And then you're going to see, look, it's year number 2 with Deshaun Watson. I have absolutely heebie-jeebie feelings about Deshaun Watson, very, very negative feelings about Deshaun Watson. I don't want to bore you with those spicy takes about Deshaun Watson, but the fact of the matter is, their second year together will yield better results. And then they ended up trading for Elijah Mitchell. They ended up trading for the Jets receiver, former Ole Miss receiver. I think it's Elijah Mitchell. And so I think that will open up the other side of the field for Amari Cooper to be very effective. Amari Cooper going into his 9th year, and it's still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, still one of the best route running wide receivers in the NFL. Yeah, he's playing with Deshaun Watson, but Deshaun Watson is a talented receiver, a talented quarterback, despite his off-the-field troubles. I'm going to put Amari Cooper as my number 4 wide receiver going into the 2023 season. Number three, we're going to go with the Heisman Trophy winner, Mr. DeVonta Smith. DeVonta Smith last year led the Eagles in targets last year, was second on the team in receiving with 1,196 yards. He was second on the team in targets, but he led the team in receptions and then second in yards. 7 touchdowns. He and A.J. Brown making up for a great wide receiver tandem, and the Dallas Goedert tight end playing kind of in between there. And we all know and love Jalen Hurts. I think DeVonta should be higher, but the fact of the matter that he's going to be sharing targets with A.J. Brown again and sharing targets with Dallas Goedert again. And Jalen Hurts is not going to be locked in on him. Jalen Hurts, I think, is reading the field at a high level now in the NFL, much higher than he was when he was here at Alabama. We love that for him. His improvement has been amazing. We hit on his contract numbers yesterday with Will Miller. I think Devontae Smith is going to be your third best and third most productive Alabama wide receiver going into the 2023 season. Ended up with what? He was 99 on the NFL 100 list last year. I think he's going to end up a little bit higher, but the fact of the fact that it's going to be a well-balanced offense will keep him from really breaking into and being one of the top two. Number two is going to be one of Devontae Smith's old teammates and one of Jerry Jeudy's old teammates. We're going with Jalen Waddle. Waddle, baby, Waddle. If you looked at Madden yesterday, they messed up the Jalen Waddle on the touchdown celebration. Another reason not to buy anything that EA Sports makes, except I'm going to be a sucker next summer and buy the NCAA football game. Jalen Waddle last year, 117 targets, 75 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Look, he would be number one if it weren't for a man called Tyreek Hill. He'd be number one if it weren't for a man called Tyreek Hill, and if it weren't for all the running back options that the Miami Dolphins brought in this season. Chase Edmonds coming in this year, Raheem Mostert coming in this year. Look, the Miami Dolphins are going to try to emulate the San Francisco 49ers as best they can with their run-first offense, play-action passing. Will Jalen Waddle be getting it down the field? Absolutely. Will Jalen Waddle be open in play-action passing? Absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, playing opposite Tyreek Hill will hinder him just a little bit. You saw production dip from a targets and receiving standpoint from year one to year two, but his yards jumped way up. He put in 300 more yards in his second year. That's the Tyreek Hill factor. I think the offense will be more wide open, but Jalen Waddle will still be kind of their number two option behind Tyreek Hill. Number one is a guy we haven't heard from in quite some time. It was suspended an entire year for gambling on the game. I'm going to go with number one, the best wide receiver, or the most productive Alabama wide receiver alum in the NFL in 2023 will be Mr. Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, all right, so he took all year off last year. We all know that. He didn't take all year off. He was suspended for gambling last season. You look at what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing. Atlanta trades him away to Jacksonville for what, a third, fourth round pick. The Jacksonville Jaguars signed Christian Kirk to a big money deal, $17 million a year. Christian Kirk puts in 84 receptions last year, 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Christian Kirk automatically, boom, you get bumped down to number two. You get bumped down to the number two option. Calvin Ridley is, in my opinion, probably the best Alabama route runner that you have out of the 5 that we just listed. I think Calvin Ridley is on a vengeance tour this year. If you've been paying any attention to Jaguars camp this fall, you've heard Calvin Ridley is just doing teams and doing defenders dirty on the other side. So I'm going to take a stab at Calvin Ridley being your most productive Alabama wide receiver this year. Why? He's going to be the number one option. He's going to be the number one option in Jacksonville. Yes, I know Amari Cooper is your number one option in Cleveland, but if you look at Devontae and Jalen Waddle, both those guys are number two options for their respective teams, and Jerry Jeudy, number 2 or 3 option, depending on how you see the Denver offense going. Calvin Ridley and Amari are really your only number one options in their receiving game. And then you compare the offenses, compare the quarterbacks. I like Trevor Lawrence more than I like Deshaun Watson. I think Trevor Lawrence presents a better passing option for Calvin Ridley's success. And then I think Calvin Ridley is going to be highly motivated. He said, "This year I'm going out to get my name back." So we're looking forward to seeing Calvin Ridley. That's going to be my 5 best Alabama wide receivers. If you're drafting fantasy football this week, next week, NFL starts September 5th, I believe. So you make sure you draft before then. If you're drafting Alabama wide receivers, Yeah, let somebody draft Jalen Waddle early. Let somebody draft Devontae Smith early. I think that the sneaky move, is to get Calvin Ridley a little bit on the later end, and he's going to be a key. I think he's going to be a league winner in your fantasy football league this year. So we had a lot of fun today on the program. I appreciate everybody jumping in. My cousin Chris jumping in on the comments. Appreciate you, sir, on the Facebook side. Everybody can jump in on the comments if you want to participate on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can find me at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social media platforms. We're proud partners and proud part of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network with our man Chris Walsh. We got our friends Blue Collar Unplugged and All Things Bama, the other BamaCentral Broadcasting Network podcast. Make sure you go out and subscribe to them as well. We are going to be following all things Alabama. Look, tomorrow, Alabama soccer at 7 p.m. Alabama soccer. Appreciate you, Troy Williams, chiming in as well on the comments as well. Alabama soccer at 7 p.m. We'll be out there, and then on Saturday, Alabama's second scrimmage. We're going to be in the Bryant-Denny Stadium media room on Saturday, listening to Coach Saban. So stick with us on the Joe Gaither Show. We're still venturing out to try to get Wes Hart on the program. Miss Stephanie with the SID. We're texting back and forth trying to get the Alabama soccer coach on the program. Got a little Peyton Woodyard news. Hopefully we're going to get Peyton Woodyard on the program here pretty soon. Alabama 2024 recruit, big-time safety out of St. John Bosco. So hopefully we'll get Peyton Woodyard to join us very, very soon. He followed me back on Twitter. Hopefully that's a good sign for our future on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. That's going to do it for our program today. We're going to get out of here. We encourage you guys to follow us at BamaCentral.com. This has been another edition. We'll be back tomorrow, 1 o'clock. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock for another edition of the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.